Happy Wednesday. So today is actually kind of an interesting day. You guys are going to have to let me know your thoughts on today because we are trying something new, same material, just delivered a different way. So I'm going to actually present my screen. I think that's going to be the best way for you guys to understand. Come on. Okay, so in Classroom, while it's loading, goodness gracious, I'll get rid of some of the tabs. Okay, so today, if you go to classwork, there are extra challenging activities if you want that are posted up here, or just some fun things that are optional, but looking at Wednesday stuff. So it's very little. You've got today's read aloud, and then you've got this Pear Deck activity. And when you go to the Pear Deck activity, what you're going to do is read the directions. It says you're going to open the link. You need to read the directions for each slide and read the material on each slide and complete any questions. So this is a Pear Deck activity. So if you guys think back, this isn't like Flashcard Factory. It's made by the same company, but with Pear Deck, this was the one where like we could edit the slides and draw on the slides, and we could write responses and all that kind of stuff. This is the same thing as that, but it is self-paced. So I'm gonna show you like my perspective. So here, like, this is what yours will not look like, but here you will see the vocab review, and then you get to draw, as you can see, like these people did. There's also different questions that are multiple choice, that are short answer. And it's just, let's see here, 1, 2, okay, 6 slides. Okay, so super easy, but essentially all you do is you click on this link and it's going to show it as if I'm a student. So it's always good to make sure that you are having you're logged into Google Chrome, which you should be if you're in Classroom. You're going to tell me, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling great? It's Wednesday. It's halfway through the week. Are you feeling, I'm kind of not liking this online learning, but I'm pushing through. I'm trying to be positive. Or is it just like you're not going too well, or you're not doing too well? So I'm feeling great. And we have our cute little pair that's taking us on a journey. So as you can see, there's so many different fun colors you can choose from to have your drawing tool. You got a pencil, you can use a highlighter, you can use a line. I would suggest using one of these first 3 for this one. You can erase, you can add text, you can go through. I do want you answering every single question, guys, because I am taking points for this. But here, if you click on this, it will read it. It should read it to you. I guess not. If you are wanting it to be read to you, just let me know, and I will send you the links on how to have it read to you. But otherwise, like this one's a multiple choice. There's another drawing slide. Here, you're going to write your answer to this and just type in that box. So just take your time, read through it, answer, but it's kind of laid out pretty nicely. But I want to know, after today, I'm going to be curious, what formatting do you like doing these social studies projects best? Do you like Flipgrid best? Do you like the Google Forms? Do you like this Pear Deck activity better? But as you can kind of see here, the number of people it has for, maybe I'm seeing that wrong. Oh, this is the number of people that are on that slide right now. Okay, so just make sure that you're answering it all correctly, or like you're answering every slide I'm saying, okay? So that is it for that. Do you guys have any quick questions before we start read aloud? Okay, just let me know on which version you like best. I'll probably send out that survey today. Just saying like, hey, how are you guys liking things? What format do you like it in? Do you like the classroom discussion, do like Google Forms, that kind of thing. Because I want to try my best to tailor it to your needs and what would make it more enjoyable for you. But I think the Pear Deck looks super cute. So my personal opinion. But, all right. So we are on chapter 24 for Read Aloud. And yesterday we ended with something we could have made huge inferences from. So I'm going to just read the last part. And Aiden had mentioned something really interesting yesterday. So they had run into, I should probably put these characters in. We found out that they ran into Tarek at the church or the gathering place for worship. And so Tarek is now with them. Yay. But Armin was the character we learned about, and Armin is trying to think. Oh, he is the innkeeper. He's the hotel. So they crashed at a hotel, and Armin is the person who owns the hotel. And they actually, Amo Mason knows Armin pretty well. It sounds like, and it seems like he visits him quite often because at the end, Armin had said, men dropped by earlier this week asking about you. So that's the third person that said that there's someone out for him. So like I could be wondering like who is out there for him, like who's trying to get him. I could be inferring like, is this like, so my inference that I could have made yesterday could have been somewhere along those lines. It could have been somewhere along the lines of like, Amo is probably going to die, but I'm going to take it more specifically and say, I think that it's going to be by the hands of these men, and he's going to be too weak to fight them. So that could be another inference. Or I could infer that he's just going to go because of his health. So that could be another inference I could have been making yesterday. Aiden had mentioned that Amo mentioned like the sword of time or something like that was how he phrased it, and how time pretty much can take you at any moment, and that you would be no longer living. And I'm going to pull up my comments here. And then Armin said that Amo Mason is playing with the razor's edge. So Aiden had connected the sword of time with the razor's edge, and how Amo Mason is playing with his time that he's got remaining, and he's maybe not being cautious enough about it. So that could be another thing we could be inferring, is what is the author meaning there? So the last thing you could have inferred, so there's so many different things you could be inferring at this point. Another thing that I thought of for inferencing was Amo Mason had asked for the kids to get him water so he could have a private conversation with Armin. And Amo Mason said that the children have proved useful, particularly at checkpoints. And then Nadia frowned and thought to herself, useful? What does he mean? And then she starts having doubts again. So I could have made an inference dealing with that of, is Amo Mason truly just using them and not truly trying to help them? Is he, like, why does he need to use them? I could make an inference about that. So a ton of different things you could be making inferences about. I'm going to be going through those quizzes today, and I'm excited to see what you guys were thinking. So I'm done talking. I'm going to start reading. I'm sorry. I'm trying my best to make sure that these recordings are shorter for you guys. My goal is always to be done within a half hour. Okay, so stop talking, Mr. Readinger, and get reading. Chapter 24, October 11th, 2013, same day, 3 p.m. We must be swift, but careful, said Amo Mason, weariness lining his face as he slipped out of the front door into the gray of late afternoon. He'd been nearly as eager as Nadia to leave, not waiting for the cover of darkness he usually preferred. I wonder why he's so much in a rush to leave. Could it be possibly with knowing that there's people out to get him? But then wouldn't you want to also be safe and cover? I don't know. They passed the large vintage thermometer hanging on the wall outside the door, inscribed in French. It's only 9 degrees Celsius, reported Basel. Okay, someone who's in here right now. We don't measure in Celsius, so I want someone to Google what is 9 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit so we can relate to it. Go, put it in chat when you're done. So it's only 9 degrees Celsius, reported Basel. It sure feels like it, thought Nadia, shivering, so we know it's a cold temperature, shivering as she buttoned her coat up to her chin and pulled her father's cap and the protective visor over her head. She watched as the boys helped Amo Mason descend the steps into the carport, mistrust clawing at her heart as she recalled his words to Armin. Is he just using a cover to navigate through the city? Or is he just using us as cover to navigate through the city? Who is looking for him and why? So all things that we should be wondering. If Nadia is thinking this, you should be thinking this. Good. So thank you. Holy cow, we got a lot of kids that helped. So thank you, Michael, Sam, Jake, Kira, Allison, Dylan. So 9 degrees Celsius is about the same as 48.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. She wondered if she should have shared what she learned with Tarek, but she had no proof that he meant them harm. And how could he? He was so ill he could barely walk. And so far, all he'd done was help them and all the other people that they'd met. She shrugged off the sensation that something wasn't quite right. She followed, realizing that she would have to be on her toes, safeguarding the boys while making sure that they all got to Turkey. So she feels something's wrong. I really think she should confide in Tarek because he's about, the same age as her, and they could probably share the burden of worry instead of her trying to worry herself. The old city is just a few blocks from here, said Amo Mason, looking at each of them in turn. His usual gentle face is grim. It's overrun by different rebel groups, many of them squabbling among themselves. Again, they're turning against each other. And the citadel is under Syrian army control, with snipers posted along the top. Once we pass it, we will turn north. If we're stopped, use the same story. I'm your grandfather, and we're looking for shelter at a relative's house, because ours was bombed. Understood? They nodded. Nadia took the reins while slipping the compass into her pocket. Come on, girl, time to go, she whispered in the donkey's ear. Jamila stared into her eyes and brayed softly in reply, stepping through the iron gates out onto Barron Street. Nadia took a deep breath. The air smelled like rain. Good, she thought, glaring at the rooftops with a shiver. On their way to the hotel, they heard shots fired at a passing van and realized the sniper sat like a vulture atop of the Sheraton Hotel. Rain would make seeing through the scope of a rifle more difficult. So that's why she's happy it might rain. I hope the merciless Kalb drowns. Water, sighed Tarek, rubbing a raindrop across his cheek. Allah tells us he has made every living thing from water. Really? Asked Basel, and they fell into a whispered theological discussion. Stay within the shadows, said Amo Mason, keeping an eye on the rooftops as he lay in the cart, watching for any hint of movement. Nadia complied, while taking a last look over her shoulder at the once Grand Baron Hotel. At the next corner, a group of men stood huddled beneath the awning of a travel agency, having a hushed, intense conversation. Nadia slowed. The boys crowded in closer as Amo Mason called out, Salam, brothers! What news is there in the old city? It's weird that he's one to reach out to them instead of try to blend in. It's a little suspicious. The youngest, the collar of the coat upturned, replied, Things have been quite quiet after the fighting, perhaps a bit too quiet. Yes, added his friend, restlessly rocking on the balls of his feet. It feels like the calm before a storm. So not only is there going to be rain, but they're mentioning like suspicions of something bad is going to happen. So I'm expecting like a huge symbolical storm of trouble coming. A lot of symbolism here. I'm just tired of it all, grumbled the first. Life was hard before the war, but good enough. Why did we have to go off and start fighting? His friend punched him in the arm, eyes wary. Keep your thoughts to yourself, Nadia could hear him think. Thank you, replied Amo Mason. The men nodded politely and melted into a side street. Head to the square, he said, coughing, pointing towards the clock tower that rose in the distance. There is a gate there that leads into the old city. Rest, Amo, said Tarek, taking the pillows and blankets they'd taken from the hotel to make him more comfortable. Thank you, said Amo Mason, with a smile, his voice hoarse. I think I will close my eyes for a bit. Jamila, he's closing his eyes. I hope nothing bad happens, because I was suspecting he was laying in the cart nap because he was tired and sick and whatnot, but he could like look up in the sky and see the top of the buildings and look out for snipers, so I wonder if they're going to get shot at now, but he's got his eyes closed. All right. Jamila, who had a mind of her own, leapt forward, eager to keep moving. Mishmish sat behind her, tied with a leash, nose twitching as he sniffed the wind. With Nadia in the lead, Tarek and Basel flanked either side of the cart. Spines straight, eyes on the road, Basel was a pint-sized soldier on the lookout for trouble. Oh, don't worry. I guess if Amo's sleeping, Basel's got it covered. Cute little kid. Only Nadia knew what lay beneath the bluster of his tough guy act. So it's all just an act. He's truly scared inside. North, Turkey, father, thought Nadia. Her mental recitation was interrupted as the echo of hand grenades was heard in the distance, following by answering machine gun fire. She calculated it was a quarter of a mile away in the direction of the old city. Not good. She shared a worried glance with Tarek as they crossed the street, which was empty except for a few people hurrying along, carrying supplies and food that they'd collected. On the other side of the street, a great building straddled the block, circled by an iron fence. Hundreds of sandbags lay stacked across the courtyard, like for bombing purposes. Up close, she realized that they weren't just lumpy sacks. A massive stone foot protruded from beneath. A few yards down from it stood a craggy Roman god, guarding the main entrance of the building, barricaded by concrete blocks. I've been here, she thought. It was the National Museum. Professor Layla had told them how the curator and staff had locked themselves inside, trying to protect priceless treasures like the Ebla tablets. They soldiered on, moving cautiously as they approached the edge of the square, where the city's famous clock tower stood still. Nadia remembered visiting with her family, strolling along Yarmouk Street to their favorite juice vendor. She licked her dry lips as the sweet tart memory of pomegranate came back. She shook her head of the memory and peered past a broken-down gasoline truck. Bab al-Faraj, the Gate of Deliverance, muttered Amo Mason, staring at the far side of the tower, where a city gate could be seen, one of the 9 original entrances to the old city. Unfortunately, it was guarded by a dozen men in fatigues, and they didn't look friendly. Abruptly, half of them grabbed their rifles and hurried beyond the gate into the old city. We can't go this way, said Nadia, stomach sinking. There's another gate. Back the way we came, said Amo Mason, pulling out a kerchief to muffle his coughs that shook his body. He's getting worse, thought Nadia, staring at the pale face. She turned the cart around, and they emerged onto a parallel street, which took them south along the old city wall. The street was lined with silent shop fronts, where haggard figures lurked in the rubble, scavenging. So, like, trying to find anything useful. Burned out cars obstructed the paths. As they neared a fork in the road, Nadia held up her hand in a warning and pulled Jamila to a halt behind the burned out husk of a truck. She took out Alma Mason's stick with the mirror and angled it down the road. "Let me see," whispered Alma Mason, getting off the cart, his steps uneven. Bab al, Bab, Bab el Antequia is down another 100 yards. It doesn't appear to be guarded. The old man climbed back onto the cart with Tarek's help. As they neared, Nadia could see why the gate had been left unmanned. It was once the western gate into the city, but now it was reduced to rubble, blocking entry. While Nadia and Tarek investigated the damage, Basel wandered up the street, light-footed as a cat, looking for a place to relieve himself. Why are they mentioning this? I wonder if something bad's going to happen to him. The fact that he's wandering off on his own to go to the bathroom. It's kind of weird and random of the author to do. Nadia hurried over to help Tarek to try and shove aside blocks of stone. "That's no use, children," said Alma Mason. "I'm afraid." "Hey," interrupted Basel, waving at them from further down the road. "Over here!" The explosion that had destroyed the gate had blown a path straight through a workshop next door. "Watch your step," whispered Tarek, taking the lead as Nadia tugged Jamila's reins, Basel keeping an eye on Alma Mason from behind. Inside the ruined shop, it was tricky maneuvering the cart over leather, scraps, metal tools, and shattered machinery parts. As Nadia entered the street, on the other side, her foot landed on a puddle of freezing water. Extracting her foot, she saw that the alley was strung with sheets and froze. Snipers. The rooftops were clear, but from the corner of her eye she caught something stirring at the end of the lane. Something black fluttered, then disappeared into the ruins of a small restaurant. Its sign for roasted chicken crumpled on the floor or on the ground. Somewhere in the distance, revolutionary music ebbed and flowed as if playing from a moving car. "We need to go," urged Basel, holding his rifle close. Nadia pulled out the compass. "That way," she said, pointing to a narrow street that veered east. Carefully, they crept through narrow alleys and natural fortifications provided by the old city's historical architecture, which had served as cover for both the Syrian army and rebels who had turned the old city into a battlefield. Elegant, venerable homes, schools, caravansaries, where caravans along the Silk Route plied their goods. Bathhouses and mosques lay mangled. Their innards littered the streets, carved pillars, shattered tiles, furniture, and personal items of those who have fled. So pretty much this whole street is just littered with debris. At the corner, they turned past the Ottoman villa, jutted by mortar, its beams bent and broken. Nadia craned her ears, hunting for echoes of any gunfire. But besides the patter of rain, the only other sound came from the lurch and creak of steel and stone, like sinister wind chimes. So focused she was on the compass that she didn't see that the boys were no longer walking beside her. "Nadia," hissed Basel, "stop!" She turned and found them standing still, open-mouthed and staring at the horizon. She frowned, wondering why they were examining an empty patch of sky. Then it hit her. "Where did it go?" she blurted. A magnificent minaret had once stood in the spot, a part of the skyline for nearly 1,000 years. So some sort of historical architecture used to stand there, and now it's gone, it sounds like. Unlike traditional cylindrical minarets, this one has been square. or had been square, blush-colored stone wrapped in an intricate Arabic inscriptions. As Nadia gaped, wind rustled past, reminding her of the call to prayer that had flowed from the minaret 5 times a day, calling believers to prayer from all over the old city. I heard government artillery knocked it down. The dome collapsed into a pancake, destroying Prophet Zechariah's tomb, said Tarek, spitting on the ground as if he had a bad taste in his mouth. Wanton destruction, muttered Amo, Mason, cheeks pale as he surveyed the damage. It survived sackings by Abbasids, Byzantines, Armenians, and Mongols, even an earthquake. And its library, with priceless manuscripts and books reduced to ashes, it could not save any. Come, said Tarek. No point in lingering here. Nadia nodded and slipped into the alley. Handsome homes, empty of residents, flanked the lane. They were remarkably intact. It is too quiet, thought Nadia, the hair on the back of her neck rising. My arm hair is rising right now. Wait, hissed Basel. From ahead, she and Tarek froze, staring toward a gap between two sagging houses where the boy pointed. Sandbags piled high, blocking the parallel street. A man stood beneath the balcony, his cigarette glowing in the shadows. Turn around, whispered Nadia urgently, tugging on the harness, Jamila's eyes rolling with fear. So it sounds like this old city, which is kind of like the center, like a city center, old city, is kind of torn apart pretty bad. And which is sad because it has a lot of historical meaning to Syria. So not only was this chapter mainly focused on describing that, it also really is describing how dangerous the city has become. The fact that the government is tearing down historical architecture without a care. The fact that there are snipers all over the place and sandbags for people to hide behind so they don't get shot. It's definitely building the sense of like, this is not a safe place to be for long. And the fact that they end with running into someone in the shadows or seeing someone in the shadows with a gun definitely made her nervous. And the fact that she has to feel like that she's the leader now since Amo Mason is not doing well in the back of the cart. So I'm just going to read through. It looks like Michael's thinking that Amo Mason will die soon. So it's definitely like foreshadowing to it. But it looks like Kira's thinking, watch, the author's just making us think that he's doing bad this whole time, but he's going to like survive in the end, which could be the case because our whole social studies unit is focused on how refugees are resilient, meaning how are they able to push through and persevere in things. So with that being said, is this author trying to show how Amo Mason could be a resilient refugee, or Nadia, or the other children? So those are some things to kind of consider, is how are these refugees that we're reading about, both in our Read Aloud book, in the Sudanese refugee story with Aloud and Gabriel, or even if you guys decided yesterday, I did post that link or documents in the extras section in Classroom that has a list of some refugee books that you could read that are similar to our Read Aloud, but some are a little bit more exciting, honestly. But any connections you guys can be making about how these refugees are being resilient and pushing through and persevering through hard times, that's going to be even more beneficial. So otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording.